Alright everybody, welcome back to another video of the page Adventjs. In this case we are in front of the 15 challenge, which is an easy level 1. So well, let's read through the instructions so we can understand what we need to do. So ChatGPT has arrived at the North Pole and the San Elfman is working on application for managing gifts and children. To enhance the presentation, he wants to create a function, draw a table, that receives an array of objects and converts it into a text table. The drawn table should represent the object data as follows. It has a header with the column name. The column name has the first letter capitalized. Each row should contain the values of the objects in the corresponding order. Each value must be left aligned. Fields always leave a space on the left, and fields leave the necessary space on the right to align the box. So we need to basically take a look at the samples they provide to us. The first one is receiving, as you can see, an array with several objects that all of them have the same key, let's say, which are name and city, and obviously different kind of values. So I think the hardest things in this exercise or this challenge is to try to find which is the how can I say, the maximum length of each column. So as you can see in this example, the width of each column is based on the longest word inside of it. So in this case, the longest word is Charlie, and this is basically as a reference to know the column width in this case. So it's basically, it is taking, how can I say, I would say it is taking the longest word length and then adding maybe one space to each side. So that's our main or our biggest challenge in this challenge. So let's see how can we do that. So first, let's try to meet, let's say, the second rule or the second statement, which is that the column name has the first letter capitalized. So just in case I don't receive any data, let's do a early return over here with an empty string. Okay, so now let's, how can I say, collect all the columns names into an array. So for that, I'm gonna create the columns constant, and then as you can see, we have here a data which is that could have this value. So I'm gonna create that value over here so we can have it as a reference to use it later. Okay, so from the data array, I'm gonna collect into an array all the names of the columns. So in this case, the names of the column will be name and city, and as all the objects within this array has the same key, I can use any elements within the array to pick or to collect the column's name. So for that, I'm gonna use, for example, I don't know, maybe object keys, and I'm gonna use, I don't know, the first object, and hopefully it will return something like this. We will have name and city. Okay, so as you can see here, the column name has the first letter capitalized. So basically we need to pick the first character and make it in uppercase. Okay, so for that I'm gonna create another constant, which is, let's call it headers. Basically we need to map this array over here and use and transform, let's say, the first letter of each column into uppercase. So let's use columns.map and let's receive the call, and call that char add the first character will be transformed to uppercase. Then we need to concatenate that with the rest of the string. So for that, I think I can use call that, I think is slice. Okay, slice the index to the beginning of the specific portion of a string object. Return a section of a string. So I'm gonna I am not sure, but I think if I provide this, I mean only the start index or the start number, it retrieves the rest of the string. So let's comprobate that. Let's check if that is true. So for example, we have name, and if I do an slice with the one number as a first parameter, I will get in this case m. So that is okay because I am actually transforming the first letter and we are concatenated that with the rest of the string. So that is okay, perfect. And so in this case, we will have something like this, but with the first letter of each element capitalized. Okay, now I think we need to try to figure out what is the longest word on each column. The longest word could be either the name of the column, for example, name or city, or any value within each column. So for example, in the second example, the largest word in the second column is quantity. So that basically is true my assumption, let's say. Okay, for that, I think I'm gonna use, for example, a constant, and let's call it call width. And okay, this is gonna be tricky. Let me think. Because I need to pick all the columns and get the length of each, I mean, all the values within the column and get the length of all of them. And then pick the maximum number of that. Okay, so let me think. I think I can use the columns for each. Okay, we will have the call, and let's create here, for example, so first of all, we are iterating this array. Okay, let's have it here, the index as well, because I think I will need it. Let's call this constant as header length, or column name length, and it will be equal to, for example, in this case, call that length. As simple as that. Then I think I'm gonna need, let me think. This is tricky. Let me think. And then let's try to get all the lengths of the cells of that column. For example, the length of Alice, I think it's Alice, Bob, or Charlie. So let's create a constant which is cell length, and it will be equal to an array of so for example object, or it could be data that map. So we are gonna map this array over here, okay? And inside of it, I want to access to the call, which is the column, obviously, that the name, and then that the city. So in the first iteration, the call will be name. So we are gonna access to the call. In this case, call will be this object, and call that well, let's call it as, I don't know, cell, and the name of the cell, which is call. So we will have here cell is gonna be the object, and call is the name in the first iteration, obviously. And then that we have that, we will have the value of each one. We will have Alice, Bob, and Charlie. And then as they are strings, we need to get the length of all of them. So for that, I'm gonna use the property length. So we will have, for example, in the first iteration, let's comment here the potential output, that in the first iteration will be 4, and here will be an array of all the lengths of all the columns, all the cells, let's say Alice, Bob, and Charlie. It is kind of tricky for me to pronounce this name, I don't know why. So anyway, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the next one is 3, and the last one is 4, and 3 is 7. So we will have that. And then I think I need to return which is the, how can I say, the biggest number between those ones. So for example, what is the largest, I think, well, largest number, I think is greatest. What is the greatest number between 4, 5, 3, and 7? So this is basically what we got, what we want to return here. Actually, I think this should be a map, so we get something like this. As we have 2 elements, obviously we will have 2 elements as well, but instead of strings, they will be numbers. So in the first iteration, the largest or the greatest number between these ones is the number 7. So we will have 7 as a first item of this array. So in the next iteration, we will have city, which the column name length is 4, and the other value will be, for example, we have 6, 6, 5, and 6. 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. So the second one will be 8. So in order to get the maximum or the greatest number between an array and a simple value, we need to use the math class and use the max method. So for that, we are gonna pass the column name length and then pass the rest of the elements within the array cell length. Okay, so this will potentially be in the first iteration 7 and in the second one 8. So now that we have that, I think the rest should be easier. Okay, so let's create now the separator. The separator could be basically this string over here to divide the header from the body of the table, and to create, let's say, the top and the bottom of the table. So as you can see here, it always starts by a plus symbol and then a hyphen, and the rest is given according to the length of the column. So as we said, it starts by plus and then a hyphen, and then okay, we will have the call weeks, that map, because depending on how long is the columns, we can have, I guess, 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns. So we need to iterate or to map this call widths array in order to get this part of the string or of the separator. So for that, let's use call width, and call width is gonna be a number, as you can see here. So basically we need to use to return a hyphen, and we need to repeat it by the call width value. And then, so for example, let's try to see here in the first example. In the first column, it is 7. So we wanna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so okay, we need to, as you can see, there is this piece of the string is basically the one that we need to use to concatenate each string, you know. And so to concatenate a string or to add that piece of string between each string, we need to use the method join, and we will use this. Once we iterated all the columns width, I think we need to end that by the rest of the string, which is basically this piece. this portion of the string. So hopefully we will get something like this, basically. Okay, and now we need to build the corners of the table, which is I don't know how to call this. Let's call it a table edges, or well, instead of that, I think we can also use the name here, so we can take advantage that we are basically building these things over here. So let's build first the header. So it's gonna be header. Okay, header row. It's gonna be equal to this symbol that I don't know the name, and then an empty space plus, for example, I think it's gonna be basically the same thing as above, but instead of call width, it will be headers. And we don't need to return a hyphen. Instead, we need to return the header name. So header name, and then we need to fill the remaining space with empty space until we get or until we reach the call width on each case. So for that we can use the path end method, and we wanna tell that the max length will be, in this case I can use the index. It will be the call width that index, and as we can see here, the call width index is basically each value within this array. So in the first iteration, this is gonna be 7, and then we need to tell to this method which character we want to use to fill it. So in this case, it will be an empty space. As you can see here, it is using an empty space, other one, and so on. And then all of them we need to join that by an empty space, and this symbol will be this tuple. I think that's the name. I don't remember, or the OR operator, let's say. And then until here we have basically this. We will have, for example, in the first iteration, we will have something like this, and then like that, and then in the second iteration we'll have a city, and then, well, it won't add this symbol because this is the last one, so we need to complete it with the same thing at the beginning, but inversed. Instead of the OR operator at the beginning, it will be at the end. So hopefully this is our expected result of the header row. And now we need to do the same thing, but with the normal rows, let's say, or body row, let's call it body rows. It will be in plural because we will have, in this case, 3 rows. So I think it wanna be pretty similar to this one, But instead of header, we need to use basically all the values, right, of each object. So for that, let's create, I don't know, another const, which is cell values, let's call it, and it will be equal to an object that values from data and the first, well, no, it will be data.map, and from that, for each element we will have the let's call it column just to give it a name, but it is not the column, or maybe it is. So column in this case is gonna be the each object, and we need to return the keys, okay? And the keys, no, I mean the values, and the value will be the values of the column object. So this gonna return something like this. I think it will be an array of array, and the first element will be an array of Alice, then Bob, well, let's actually print what we receive from that code. So we are gonna have, I don't know, const a equal to this, and then let's do this. I'm sorry, it will be a column. Okay, we will have an array of array. Awesome. Okay, so okay, excellent. So let's see what we can do in the body rows, because we don't need this piece of code. We need to use the okay, we have here the column. No, sales value that map, and for each of them no, I think, let me think. I think we need to use the columns, okay? Because the columns has only 2 elements. So we need to map it through 2 elements. And the column, well, column is column, obviously. And the first element, we need to return something like this. But without the join. Without the join. In this case, we need to use cell values. And here we need to use the index. And in the sales value, this is pretty confusing, to be honest. Sales value is gonna be here we will have sell val. Okay, let's remove this. Okay. So sell val in the first yeah, in the first position. So we are iterating here these values. Okay, so in the first iteration we will iterate, or we will have this value, which is an array. So we need to access to the current index of this iteration. So in the first iteration, this will be 0. And then inside of it, we are mapping all the values of the cell, as you can see here, but we are only returning the first element of each array in this case. So we will have in the first iteration an array of Alice, Bob, and Charlie. So then that we have that, so this is gonna be our potential outputs of the first iteration, Bob and Charlie. And for that, we need to join that with the, let's see, an empty space, the O operator, and this, something like that. But, okay. Okay, before returning that, we need to use the path end and do the same thing as above. And just remove this code over here. So we will have something like this. Imagine, I don't know, and something like this. Okay, so I think we are done. So let's see what we get now. So here we are gonna return an array, and we just need to reorder the values that we have. So we are gonna start with the separator. Okay, the separator is on a string. Awesome. Then we will have the header row, which is another string, and in the body rows is an array. Well, it's not an array. I think we can use here the join, this one also, and then okay, the body rows. Well, actually we need the separator. Okay, the separator is the top one, the top of the table. Header row is gonna be this. Then we need one more time the separator to divide the header from the bottom, and then the body rows is gonna be these ones, and then lastly we need to return or to add the separator again. And as you can see, it is a string, so we need to join that with the line break. And to do that, we need to use the inverted slash. That should be our solution. So let's see if that is working. Okay, cell val index path is not a function. Cell val, okay, index is not a function. So cell values is not working well. So let me see what we are going what we are getting is to get an array of something like this. Let me try to draw it. So an array of 3 elements as the original data table or data array, and the first item should be basically something like this. Okay, and then the second element should be something like this, and so on. So we need to try to build a code that does that. So let's do this from the beginning. So basically, in order to get, for example, an array of 3 elements, we can use the original data, right? And for that data, we need to map it, and let's call the first element as, I don't know, object row, for example. We need to do something like this as the header, right? I think so. Actually, I think I can use the code of the header, but instead of header, I don't know, maybe we can use a parameter, for example, build row. Okay, and it will be equal to, well, actually it's gonna be a function, build row, and it receives it's gonna receive, I don't know, row data or object row. Let's call it object row. Object row. In this case, the headers, actually it will be the column, the columns. Okay, the columns, because we need to pass the first column and the second column. From that we need to return basically this, and then we need to concatenate that with the columns, and we need to map it, call name, and then maybe we need to use the index, right? And let's use a bracket here so it is clearer, I think. Let's call this as a row, and it will be, row content, better, row content, and it will be equal to this. And inside of this block of code, we need to return, okay, the call name, and we need to fill it until the max width of the call width, that index, with an empty space, and then we need to join that, as you can see, with this string. Okay, now that we have that, we can use here the row content and then concatenate this. Awesome. And then the header row would be equal to build row, and the columns will be the headers. Okay, the headers. Okay, awesome. And now we need to do something like that, but with the bow roads. We need to pass something that has the same elements, I mean, the same amount of elements as the columns. It could be the column as well, I don't know, let me think. But, and then for each row, it should return something like, for example, Alice, Bob, and then Charlie, for example, something like this. Well, it should be here. We need to return something similar to this. And to do that, okay, for each object row that contain, so okay, let's call this as constant row content, and the row content will be equal to, for example, we need to provide to this build row, for example, an array which is that has 2 elements. And those 2 elements could be, for example, in order to build the first row, it will be Alice and London, and then Bob and Paris, and then Charlie and New York. So the first element should be Alice, and the second one London, in order to have actually something like this, London, for example. This is what we need to do. And for that, we can use the data, well, the object row, but we need to convert that object into an array. And I think we can use the values. So let's have here row values. It will be object row equal to object row that values. Actually, is object that values and the values of the object row. And this is gonna be, if I am not mistaken, something like this. Something like this. Okay? Now that we have that, I think now we can have the row content. And the row content will return something like this. And then we need to return here the row content. And the body rows will be equal to an array of this, for example, and then something like this, but with the next row, which is Bob and Paris, and so on. Okay, now that we have that, we need to join that. Well, no, that's okay. So we need to spread that or to put. Let me think. Yeah, I think that's okay, because if I use the spread operator, we are basically adding all the elements in that array. So this should work now. Let's see. Okay, but end join is not a function. Okay, that is not working. Call name. So we have something weird here. So for example, let's see what is object values. Okay, join is not a function. Okay, that's correct, because this is a string, and that method doesn't exist on a string, as far as I know. So, but it does exist in the array. So this is an array. We need to join that with an empty space, then or operator, let's say, and then, well, that's all. And now it should work. Let's see now. Okay, it seems it is working. So let's see if we get a result, or we get the solution. Well, we are not using sales values. This code, we need to use it here, or maybe here. I think it's better. I don't know, maybe here. Okay, and I think that's all. Let's see now. Content value path end is not a function now. Why? I don't know. Let's use the optional chaining. Okay, in the second row, it is not working, and here it's not working either, because okay, we need to transform all the content, because okay, sometimes it could be a number, and we are assuming that it will be always a number. Okay, I think I understand it now. So the content value is okay, but we need to transform that into a string in order to so we need to, in order to treat it as a string. So basically we need to do something like this, right? But we need to convert that into a string. Let's see now. Okay, well, it is better, but not quite, because it seems in the second column the space is not right somehow. So call width seems it's not working, it seems. So let me copy this code. Okay, but I need to know what cell's length is. So in the first one is 4, 4, and 8. It seems to be okay. Okay, I need to transform also each value into a string. So string and something like this to wrap that into the string class. Okay, now it is working now. So let's see. Where was that? Okay, over here. String. And let's wrap that into a string, and let's see now. Awesome. We did it, but as you can see, it took us a long time to figure out what was going on, basically. Okay, well, I am not so proud of my code and the time it took me to solve this problem, this challenge, because it was supposed to be easy, and I think it was, but it was really confusing because of the length of the calls. the columns, I mean. Okay, well, the the, the good thing is we were able to do it. We just forgot. Yeah, we just forgot to transform all the elements into a string and not assume that all the elements was going to be a string. Were going to be a string, I mean. So, well, I think that's all. Thank you for watching, and I see you in the next challenge. That I think it is, well, it is an easy one as well. So, I'll see you there. Thank you.